Hello, I'm your host Ghida Majzoub, and today I would like to introduce you to a man to look up to who has been serving the Canadian citizens in Montreal for the past few years, and he represents the Liberal Party. Today, they are all going through a new battle, which is the elections on the 20th of September. Let's go through this interview. Mr. Miller, thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Ghida, for having me. And I know a lot of people look at the long title and say, where is that? But it's easy to say just downtown Montreal and
exactly.
Home of the Montreal Canadians, and then everyone knows.
Exactly. And this is really special about this place, because when you look at the map as well, you see how centered it is, and you see how much people are always situated in it. If they do not live in it, they have to come to it so as to fulfill their studies or their work or whatever. So it's always the hub of Montreal.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And we're so happy to have you today and to be with you, because throughout the last years that I've spent in Canada, and many Canadians who have spent years and years, 10, 20, 30, 40, even more, they always know the importance of Canada and how much it's been welcoming for all communities. And now today I want to focus more on the Arab communities as well. So I want to introduce them first to the Liberal Party. I want to tell them what differentiates the Liberal Party from the other parties.
And it's a great question, particularly for people that think we're all the same.
Exactly.
And they look at it and they say, oh, why should I vote where you're all the same? You know, in a country like Canada, where we are a liberal democracy and very proud of our rights and freedoms, we're a young country. And we're a country that's been built, and we can talk about Indigenous peoples, but a lot of Western powers and the focus of a lot of immigration from people that look like me. And the Liberal Party, over its recent history, has distinguished itself by being the party that really attracts people that don't necessarily look like me from other countries. And we're addressing your community that is mostly Arabic speaking.
Exactly.
Sometimes people forget that it was Pierre Trudeau Sr. Who really opened up immigration to people that were not from Europe. And that was a sea change that did not come without some resistance in Canada, because people said, who are these people? They don't look like me, they don't think like me. And so the Liberal Party, for perhaps older, new Canadians, some people that have been Canadian longer than me that still call themselves immigrants, it's probably not the right term to use, but they're very proud of their heritage, but they associate naturally to the Liberal Party. That these days has perhaps been taken for granted, obviously, but it's important in our history to remember that, because we are a very diverse country.
Exactly.
But our diversity is very, very recent. Naturally, people, obviously, in any liberal democracy, have to think, what party should I choose? And so the Liberal Party of Canada has always been on, I guess, the center of a spectrum between left and right. And that's, in Canada, obviously, it's a very tight spectrum in a Westminster type system that mirrors a lot the British system, with the exception of having a Charter of Rights and Freedoms that the Liberal Party brought in.
Yeah.
It's one that does have a spectrum of thought, and as people perhaps that are tuning in, it can get quite heated during the election. So the Liberal Party these days is more center-left, because we know that there has been inequality and growing socioeconomic gaps in Canada.
Yeah.
And we're looking to Canadians to say, we want a country that closes those gaps. So
Yes.
investing in those that need a little bit more to make ends meet, making sure that we do focus on the middle class and have a reasonable approach to how we manage Canada's money. Now, obviously, we're in the middle of a global pandemic.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
and I think the important thing for listeners to remember is this. Hopefully, is a once in a lifetime plague, and it's been long, and we need to keep sticking together. So
Exactly.
this is from day one as a government, and myself as a cabinet minister, we've been fighting to keep people safe and really spare no measures to make sure that people observe public health measures, get vaccinations, to the point today where we are some of the most highly vaccinated people in the world. But to your point, that is what we see our role as a government. We believe that the state can be an agent of change, but not without limits. It's very difficult to replace the brilliance of civil society at times, but we've had to step in during the global pandemic. So we're in a unique time in our history where we're looking at how we fight what is a fourth wave, and that is something that is very much on my mind during this election period.
Well, concerning the global pandemic that has hit all over the world, and it's been really a big problem, and we're so happy and proud that Canada is one of the most vaccinated countries in the world. Really, we have to emphasize on this, because everybody is still fighting against the vaccine. Everybody's still fighting against it because they think it's the conspiracy theory. I don't want to, it's my liberty, it's my own freedom, I don't want to do this. And this has created a big problem for everybody else. If someone has a low immunity or someone has a problem, he doesn't have to suffer because of someone else who's been really fighting this. So at least if they can collaborate with the other people, so that they really understand that the vaccination is really a necessity, it's not just a luxury. They really have to feel that this is something, not just we are putting it on them, not just mandatory, but it's something essential for them.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. And I think what we have seen with what is an evolving knowledge in and around the virus, recall that it is a very new virus.
Yeah.
And our understanding as to how it spreads and how people are impacted is still evolving. It is amazing that the technology of today was able to come up with the virus and approved by some of the most stringent regulatory bodies, British, American, and Canadian,
exactly.
so quickly. And people scratch their heads about these things because the smallpox vaccine and the immunization period that it took to eliminate smallpox took close to 100 years. And so we've contracted that thanks to science to what has been a record period. So people go, how can it go so quickly? Well, there is an amazing and rigorous process that has been observed, and it has produced a vaccine that, if you look at the numbers, can provide protection for 90% of people. And that is that's amazing, because most vaccines aren't that efficient. And so some of the new technologies are really, really groundbreaking, and they have led to a situation where we've been able to minimize mortality, minimize heavy onset of symptoms of the disease by getting the information out, by having sensitive campaigns to make sure people are getting immunized, by protecting the oldest who are the most vulnerable to the virus, and then everyone else from
the new variants as well.
From the new variants. And so this is really, if you look at the science and dig in, and not all of us are scientists, I'm a lawyer, so I won't pretend to be a doctor, but I've spent enough time getting briefings from some of our top immunologists. This is something that is the way out of this pandemic. And we can't have our democracy suspended simply because 20% of the population, 15% of the population doesn't want to get vaccinated. And we know that in order to create that firewall, we have to get up that second dose. And so we're doing it, and we are some of the most vaccinated people in the world. Now the challenge is to protect those that are not eligible for the vaccine yet. So those people that are 11 and under, and some people that are immunocompromised, as well as Indigenous communities that have a high level of youth proportion, and therefore the firewall necessary for their communities isn't as high as it should be. And so this is about protecting yourself and protecting other people. And I think when you look at some of the news about some of the younger segments of the population in Texas, for example, dying, or kids getting very sick. Yeah, that's really that's sad. A real warning signal to the rest of us. So, I'm positive about this. We keep it up. It is a privilege to be able to take a train, a bus, a plane, but it comes with some responsibilities, and that responsibility is you get vaccinated, and then we'll all get out of this together, and we'll be able to regain some of those freedoms that that sometimes we take for granted, but that are so important to who we are.
Exactly, and if you did not take these mandatory precautions and procedures, you wouldn't have been able to lower down the number of the cases and lower down, as you said, the hospitalizations and everything else. If you want to concentrate now on the Arab communities who are watching us and listening to us now, I really want to say that they are really proud and they are really thankful for the Canadian government, because they have really been welcoming to them, and they have really been open-armed, so as to get them in and to at least provide them with a better future, and to provide a better future for their children. So this is really something that they are really, they're grateful for it. So what would you tell them now for the election day? What would you promise them? And what would you say to these Arab communities?
Well, you told me the other day to say, Yalla Habibi, go vote.
Exactly. Yalla Habibi. Yalla Habibi is go vote. It's excellent. Excellent.
We talked about Canada's growing diversity, and if you look at downtown Montreal, Arabic is one of the most spoken languages in my riding that I'm proud to represent.
Yes.
And obviously it's many nationalities, but it is maybe the fifth or sixth language. There's obviously English and French, Chinese, Arabic, Farsi, and then Bangla, and those are the major communities of diversity in terms of in terms of the language that they speak.
Exactly.
My job is to go meet those people, and we've had a growing influx over the last election period only of Syrian refugees, and that is something that will shape the future of Montreal and shape the future of Canada. We always remind ourselves that we are a country of immigrants, and it makes us stronger, it makes us better, and I hear from immigrants that they come to Canada to make their lives better for themselves and then for the next generation. But what's often forgotten and underappreciated is they're making Canada better, and they are shaping who we are.
Yeah.
And that's something to be very, very, very proud of. People also want to recognize themselves in the people that they elect. So while I can be a bit of an imperfect voice of the diaspora of folks that speak Arabic, whether it's Lebanese, Syrian, Egyptian, any of the diaspora, it is people also want to recognize themselves. So we've made great efforts to recruit people that are of diverse backgrounds and that do speak Arabic, so that people can see themselves in the people they vote. And I think that's very important, whether whether it's you want to see someone that is of Chinese heritage or has a black heritage, or speaks the language that you yourself speak as a mother tongue. That is very exceedingly important. Knowing that we're a bilingual country of English and French, but it's so key, and those values can get best represented, and people can be proud of seeing their country shaped in their eyes, and that's something I'm very, very proud of as a party. You need only to sit in Parliament and look down and see the Liberal Party and the level of diversity just by how people how look, and I'm very proud of it. Knowing that I'm just the white guy.
Exactly. So as we are initiating people to go and vote, also there is a large community who is the young generation, and unfortunately, as I've seen lately, I've seen that the young generation are not that much involved. They feel as if these elections, they do not represent them. 18 plus is something really major. They can do a major change in the elections that are coming up, and all the elections definitely. So what do you tell them also? Yalla habibi, definitely they should go, but what would you tell them that it's really essential for them, because they should not think that what if I don't go it won't change anything, or if I go I won't change anything as well. So what would you tell them?
You know, people always tell me that, it's a view that's important to remember. It's a bit of a hard view, is that you don't have a voice if you don't vote, or you don't have a right to speak. You absolutely do have a right to speak and have your views made known. But the best way to do that is to take the time during the election day or before and consider the parties that best represent you, and put a ballot in a ballot box. It's very easy. You can't do it by iPhone. You actually have to walk down and put it in a box with a piece of paper. It's really simple.
Or you can send it by mail.
Or even send it in by mail.
Exactly.
You know, I think apathy is something that exists, and people seem to say that it exists within certain youth segments. But this may be the result of all the work that people did to make sure that those rights that they fought for, the next generation doesn't have to fight for them. And so when I see people that are negative about politics, that's an informed political choice. Apathy is a bit more dangerous because it's a process of education. And so when you speak to people who fought so hard to have the Charter of Rights in Canada, freedoms, freedom of expression, religion, conscience, assembly, the right to vote, these are things that especially people that came from other countries have fled because they didn't have those rights, or they themselves were persecuted.
Exactly.
So they fought very hard to make sure that their kids wouldn't have to have that fight. But with that comes sometimes some forgetfulness. So I see a lot of we have to be understanding, but there's ways to motivate people, and the youth of today have different views on where they want to see their society going, and we need to listen to them. And the best way to do that is to make your vote count. There are some ridings in Canada that get decided by 50, 60, 70 votes. So if you don't go vote and a couple other people don't do it, you actually may have someone that you didn't want. And so every vote counts.
Exactly.
And we should never take it for granted. People that come to Canada have the right to vote. It's a vote that, and you should never let anyone take away that right. We should also exercise it. And so that's also important to remember. And in a place like downtown Montreal, where there's a lot of turnover, people move, the vote turnout is typically lower. So that's a challenge that I have for structural reasons, and not because people are apathetic, but we have to make sure that we know people have to go vote at a certain location that may change from election to election, as opposed to the same thing that exists in a rural riding where people have voted at the same place for 40 years. So that's a challenge, but we're trying to use new social media to get that information out, but it's always a challenge to get people out to vote.
Exactly, and if we want to tell the audience now as well the plans of the Liberal Party, because they always hear a lot of plans, a lot of promises, and sometimes this has some people thinking that we hear a lot of plans, a lot of promises, and then after the elections things change, and this is what the Liberal Party hasn't done, because what you've said before the last elections, thank God you were able to achieve it, and this is the new promise that you will do for these elections as well. So what are the latest plans for these elections as well?
Yeah, and it's a great question. The reality is we're still in a global pandemic, and this is the time to finish the fight. There are things that have been revealed by the pandemic, increased inequality, the fact that we need to keep supporting businesses and people in getting through the fight. That means first and foremost getting vaccinated, making sure that the health protocols and public measures are respected as we ease in and out of the pandemic. So our party has said from day one, we'll have Canadians' backs, and we had Canadians' backs. We supported individual people with support, as well as businesses with 75% wage support to keep businesses going. So we didn't have a mass recession in the middle of a global health crisis, and that's important to remember. Now, those measures at some point have to end, obviously, as the economy revitalizes, and that's something that we'll have to do and be done in a measured fashion. But we need to finish the fight with COVID. So making sure people get vaccinated, making sure we encourage people to get vaccinated so that we can all be healthy, safe, and free. There are other parties that don't believe in that, or they're willing to play with that concept to please their own base. I would encourage people to pay very close attention to what they are saying. We've proposed a number of things throughout.
There's also the rent to buy plan, which is excellent.
There's some great. I'm glad you're excited about it.
Especially that this is something very good for the younger generation who do not have any amount of money to put or to invest on a house or on a condo, on a studio even, to buy. So this is an excellent opportunity for them. So this is really an excellent agenda also.
Oh, absolutely. And what we see in downtown Montreal is the cost of housing has gone up.
Exactly.
And it's important to remember that this government, this Liberal government, was the first in a generation to invest in housing. We haven't been doing that as a federal government, and we know that there is increased costs, obviously for the poorest that are at risk of losing the shelter over their head, but also for first-time owners. So our platform contains a lot of measures, rent buy opportunities, but also savings opportunities where people that have up to now felt that housing is out of reach is now within reach. We need to be working with the province and the city to be doing these things, and I think our platform has consistent approaches that really give first-time buyers the opportunity to have a nice place to live.
Exactly.
And that's something I'm proud of as a government, because we know what the housing pressures are in Montreal. And this government has invested billions in housing, rapid housing throughout COVID, and a $3.7 billion investment with the provincial government that we signed in the middle of the epidemic. And we've been working a long time with the provincial government to come to an agreement, and we did it. And that will relieve pressure over time.
Exactly.
I am worried about the inflationary pressure because it hits those that need money most. And our government, when we came into power, we put into effect the Canada Child Benefit, and that is something that has really helped families get ahead. And you know, there is some wealth in Montreal, but there's a lot of family poverty.
Exactly.
And that is the nature of any large city. But our government came and put dollars directly into people's pockets, and it's made a difference.
especially that during the pandemic, which was really very hard on everybody, and now the businesses and the industries are trying to step up and stand on their foot again. And this is really what we really believe in. And we're so happy with all the plans that you are putting in the sense of climate change, of nurseries, of medical care, also of the rent to buy plan, and also supporting everyone and everyone on a specific detail. You don't take people on a universal, on a global level. You take everybody with his specific need, so as to be able to give him what he needs. And this is the big thing about the Liberal Party. And we really believe in you. We really know that you will do something good, and all the best for the elections, for the new elections on the 20th of September. Everybody who wants to vote before, they can vote by mail before the 14th of September. Everybody who's living abroad, away from Canada also, as a Canadian citizen, he can vote also in all the embassies, and we will show these all of these information on the screen now while we're talking. Thank you so much. Best of luck. And as we are counting on you as an MP for our country, we are counting on all the voters who are watching them to go and vote by any means, because they have all the means that they can vote also. Thank you so much, Marc. It's been really a pleasure to know you and to have the interview with you. You are such a humble person, and this is really a big example for all the politicians, because you are really someone who we really respect, not like in other countries where the MP thinks that he is someone who's coming from another planet, and he thinks that he's looking at people in a condescending way. You're so humble. You're a part of the population, and you're a servant of the population, as you promised and as you said in your oath. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ghida. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to vote.
Exactly. And what would you tell them?
Yalla habibi, go vote.
And at the end, after they vote, what would you tell them?
Shukran.
Shukran. Thank you so much. Shukran, Marc. Thank you so much for being with us today. And if you want to watch this interview with our MP of the Liberal Party, Marc Miller, you can subscribe on my YouTube channel, and I'll see you soon. Ciao.